Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. Mitch Daniels joins me, and first, thank you again for the time today and a very interesting conversation. The thing I appreciate about Mitch is that his ability to, or even off-camera stuff's pretty much the same as we're getting on camera, which I appreciate as well. And one question we just had hit on is just this for football, and obviously there's a lot of focus among our subscribers and readers, but in the sphere of Purdue University about you can't just start college football with 2 weeks' notice. I mean, there is a process that I'm sure is already being talked about. What's your runway in terms of getting that started?
As recently as this morning, I was in a conversation about this subject with Big Ten commissioner and presidents, because nobody knew at the front end of this what we might be getting into. They had put April 6th out there for as a marker for no organized activities. Clearly, it's going to be well beyond that.
Yeah.
No decision been made about how far beyond it. But the question did come up: at what point would you be too close to the scheduled start of the season that you had to start thinking about delaying that or shortening it or something? And the answer, looked like midsummer, and the point was made that just from a safety standpoint, not a matter of people learning the playbook, just from a physical safety of the player's standpoint, you need weeks of time to prepare. So we're not going to know for a while, but I think it's very safe to say that the April 6th date is going to get pushed back, and but that still leaves lots of time before the sort of drop dead point where you'd have to start messing with the front end of the season. So.
One thing, and I didn't ask in the first end, Purdue obviously a university that's known for its engineering, known for its scientists. What role, I mean, there are people working everywhere to get this, but specifically at Purdue, what things have you run across in terms of what is being dealt with COVID-19?
We have some of the best-known scientists in the world in this area. Richard Kuhn, who's you may have seen a lot of recently. Richard and the late Dr. Michael Rossman were the first to characterize the Zika virus in the family of viruses that this thing comes from. And so they're hard at work on that. Our drug discovery unit is part of a worldwide consortium that is looking for treatments that might work, and they are the best candidate somebody has recently found was sent here to be analyzed. So you have all that going on, and made mention earlier that many of our engineers and others are working on producing protective gear and other things that now are needed in large quantities. So very typical of this institution and its people to do anything that anyone suggests we might.
Yeah. About a year anniversary from probably one of the more magical games in the history of Purdue basketball, Purdue-Tennessee. Still, if you're down, and I know a lot of Purdue fans have gone to YouTube, just watch Ryan Klein in the second half of that game. A year later, what do you think? And we know there was a disappointment at the very end, but still a phenomenal experience of going to that NCAA tournament. What do you look at that a year later? It's got to be still inspiring. At least it is to me.
Good, because I hated the outcome.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
I'll never
one
get,
second away.
There are less than a handful of sports events in my whole life that I'll never get over, and that's right at the top.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Virginia, of course, which I told all my Virginia friends later. I said, all my life when somebody I thought was presumptuous and invoked the deity with regard to a sporting event, I would always say, come on now, God doesn't care who wins a basketball game. I changed my mind then, because it's the only explanation for what happened.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what a spectacular run, and darn it, Alan, we were there.
Yeah.
We were in Minneapolis, and I think if we'd gotten there, we were at least as good as the three teams that did, the other three teams. So, shucks, what to say? It was tremendous. What did Ryan make?
I don't know, he ended up with
6
20,
or 7 in
yeah.
a row at the end of the one game. I think he made his first 3
Yeah.
in the Virginia game. No, it was a great team with great. They conducted themselves with great character. Let me just say they handled the defeat better than I did.
Yeah.
And from Matt Painter on down, and made us proud that way. But I will say, I bet you had the same experience, that I heard from people all over the country who have no involvement with Purdue or even the Big Ten, who checked in after and said those 2 games were the most entertaining basketball games they could remember seeing in the whole that tournament, or maybe as long as they could remember. So our team gave America some tremendous thrills. I'm just sorry that we came out of it 1-1, not 2-0.
Yeah. This year's basketball team had an up and down season, certainly had some great moments in Mackey Arena, and I think that environment is still it's become the we'll say, because we have Brooklyn Dodgers fans here, the Ebbets Field of sports, but I call it the Wrigley Field of sports as well. It's now become a destination, Mackey Arena. If you're a sports fan, not just a Purdue sports fan, it is a place you want to visit. But I thought this year was exemplary in terms of a year that didn't go exactly as you planned, but the environment was still phenomenal.
Well, sold out every game.
Yeah.
No, we've got great fans, not just enthusiastic fans, but knowledgeable fans.
Yeah.
You know, the minute there's a questionable call, or maybe the ref missed one, the whole gym knows it, right? You can hear it. So it's great fun to take people there. I love taking people for the first time.
Yeah.
And they always come away awestruck. So no, thanks to everybody who makes Mackey the place it is, and you know, I'm excited for next year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this was a pretty young team, and some great talent, redshirted and otherwise, and so we're going to have some fun again.
I had a meeting with the president on another issue a couple weeks ago, and it was an hour-long meeting, and we spent about the first 30 minutes talking about Purdue recruiting and had fun doing that. So he is very, very engaged at every level with that. So that's a good thing from a Purdue sports perspective. Football, obviously, never seen a season in my years of watching where you have more injuries. In last year, the Boilermakers finished 4-8, and yet played hard, I thought, throughout the rest of the season. How do you evaluate that and some of the challenges, not only to putting a team on the field and having games, but there's hope for this program?
Oh, big time. You know, I think you have to take all these ratings and know-it-all services with some salt, but there is, it seems to be consensus. The last couple classes are, up there nationally.
Recruiting,
Back to back with great coaching and so forth, and all kind of reasons for positive hope. So you're a more knowledgeable person by person than I am, Alan. But it's clear that this team has gotten faster, bigger, and so much skill position talent. I'm sure Jeff will find a way to use them all, but he seems to be long on talent that the kind that scores points, which is what he's known for.
Yeah, I think you and I have talked before. We're both old enough to remember the guys like Leroy Keys. And Rondale Moore has that same, I think about Ross H. Stadium, that audible gasp you hear when he touches the football. And it was the same, there have been others, but not many outside of Leroy Keys, that same feeling that when he's got the ball, there's nothing quite like it.
Well, the gasp you hear is from the opposing team's defensive coordinator, I think. That's who's probably gasping the loudest. Yeah, no, it'll be great to see him back. But not just Rondale.
Oh yeah, David Bell. You can go a long way down the line.
Oh my gosh, what a year he had, and some of that hurt. You know, but no, what you said is right. Every team that you root for has injuries, and but I think it is fair to say that we were especially snake bit. I mean, what team in any sport? I was trying to think, lost its two best players or key players, let's say, on the very same play. That's a special kind of bad luck.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Aiden O'Connell is kind of an interesting story. They had the quarterback who was a walk-on now, then drew the starting nod at the tail end of the season. just watching him was something to behold.
Right. No, I mean, with the Braun brothers there,
yeah.
whoever's playing quarterback's going to have wonderful guidance and coaching, and you shouldn't be surprised if they really develop.
Yeah, and Aiden has certainly done that. You know, you look at the role of sports, and we're probably going to ask Will Miller, who will be our guest in segment 3. The psychological part of that, it's such a big part. You've talked about the student experience, and that's why you know, Purdue football, Purdue basketball, Purdue sports in general is such a part of that. Going to be more important maybe in this role once we get back going.
Yes. We like to say, I don't think we're kidding ourselves, that it's part of the Purdue character to take on adverse circumstances with a little more of a can-do spirit than others. Well, here's another chance to show it.
Yeah.
Whether it's our teams, our whole student body and community. I think you're seeing early signs of it. We talked about the transition to remote learning. Our faculty has jumped on so, I think, admirably. We talked about our commencement folks dusted themselves off and said, okay, we'll put on the best alternative sort of commencement anybody has seen. And you know, I just hope we bring that same mentality to everything as life resumes.
In this world of social distancing, and you're a workout guy, and I ask you this every time you're on here because I admire your ability to continue to do that. So what are you doing these days? How are you staying in shape the way you want to?
Yeah, well, the weekends at home,
Yeah.
I've got the same sort of stuff that I use over the years. One end, as the injuries accumulate, my range of things keeps shrinking.
Yeah.
You know, like don't do this anymore, and don't do this anymore. But I've got aerobic equipment and you know, weights and things like that. And I was here. I was in the co-rec the last day before we closed it. I will confess that I have snuck over to an empty athletic facility here, where you're not breaking any. You're not within 60 feet of anybody, so I can keep it up a little bit. But we're pretty busy. But I've been able to. I figure 4 a week, if you go hard enough, keeps my conscience clear.
That's how he provides inspiration to people like me. Now, he's just a couple years older than I am, so I appreciate that, and that's an important thing to remind. Is one of the key messages throughout this global pandemic is you do have the opportunity to get outside, and it's an important thing to be able to do that safely.
Right. Thank goodness better weather's coming.
Yeah.
Today's not bad. Yesterday was
Yesterday was
beautiful.
fantastic.
And yes, I mean, I think I'm accurate in saying that the medical people say within the limits that they're recommending, do try to get exercise. This is good for your immune system. Do try to get out, and so I hope we'll all have many more opportunities in the next few weeks.
And obviously this is an intensely family time too, and that you've got 4 girls, and as much as you care to share, they're doing okay where they are, and how's that going?
Yeah, they're doing all right. They got little ones in the house.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
But you know, so, I'm impressed so far. Their mom and I were talking last night. They're doing the little ones are learning things. A lot of reading going on, educational programs, a little game, playing some games as a family, and I hope that's happening in millions of households. You know, I wrote one of my occasional columns last week in the Washington Post, trying to scratch around for some good things, and you know, more than 40% of Americans say they eat together at home 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And 10% say they almost never do. So now that folks are forced to observe these new rules, I hope it's not. I don't think it's too much to hope that there might be a little more. Yeah. People might appreciate a little more coming out of this, their loved ones and things they have in common, and the fact that it can be fun to put the phone down and disconnect the computer and talk to one another.
Yeah, no doubt. That's going to be a key part of how we get through this across the world. No question about that. Thank you so much for your time today. And
well, thanks for what you're doing. If you're going to keep our spirits up by keeping the show going. And again, just as people with jobs like mine have, I think, a special responsibility and opportunity to help people understand what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
What are the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons. We'll all make smarter decisions because of the work you do.
All right, well, thanks so much, and we will take a short break, and Dr. Will Miller will join us for segment 3, which he wears several hats. All of them will be helpful as we deal with what's going on now, and we look forward to that on Golden Black Live. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in a couple minutes.